One thing you said a little bit ago about you made me think of the general case of people who retire or find themselves with lots of free time, or maybe they're empty nesters or whatever, floundering a bit. And yes, often feeling sad, and I know you and I both have known people who've even committed suicide. The sadness is I feel sad for them that they missed out on so much that was yet to come, that they just couldn't see. Listening to you, I can identify at least 2, maybe 3 specific therapy skills in action that you're applying to yourself. But I get the principle, which is asking the what then? Like, so there's a question and then there's an answer, and then say, okay, so what does that answer mean? And then you give an answer, and then so what does that answer mean?
I'm Art Blanchford, and this is Life in Transition. Welcome to this episode of the Life in Transition podcast. I'm super excited today for 2 reasons. One is I get to hang out with my brother, cousin, and one of my best friends, Jim Hunt, who's my first guest on this podcast. Jim is a Carnegie Mellon computer engineer and about to become a therapist now after midlife transition and a new marriage that's going great, and just turned 54 years old, and one of the people I'm closest to in the world. And what we are talking about today is another reason I'm super excited. We're talking about the experience that I just had hiking the 100-mile wilderness plus a little bit more in Maine, being on the trail for 11 days straight, and what came out of that. And there's so many lessons, and it was so beautiful. And Jim knows all about it, and also super good at unpacking things in me. So we're turning the tables a little bit today, in a sense, to have this conversation, but it's going to be definitely a very much two-way conversation, even maybe a little bit of an interview from Jim to me. But with that, I'm going to say, Jim, thank you, and most welcome back to the Life in Transition podcast. And I'm really excited to be here and just have a mosh pit with you about this experience, and to take it where it goes, and to share the lessons and reflections from both of us about this experience that I just had in the woods. So
sounds great.
Most welcome. I don't know exactly where to start, but I'm going to start with this. Realizing from the position I am in now, looking back, the last 4 to 5 months, I've been depressed before I went to the woods. I thought it was just a lot of sadness that I was experiencing, but it was deeper than that. It was sadness that was stuck, which is what creates depression. And being in the woods already for just a couple of days of walking and silence and community and connection with myself, with nature, and with God, already let that go. Didn't let the sadness all go, but it let that grayness, that hopelessness, that feeling of my life is over sort of feeling, like what is there to go forward toward? It let that go. And that surprised me how quickly it changed. It also surprised me how, I want to say robust in a way that my body was, like how quickly my circadian rhythms like fell in, and how good my sleep was almost from immediately, and how well my GI worked.
Yes.
Like perfectly from the beginning. I was worried about having to go to the bathroom all the time when I'm in the woods. And, it surprised me how quickly everything came back into, full function. Almost immediately.
So when you say how quickly, what days did you start to see these things happen? Was it on like day 3, day 1, after week 1? Where did they start to happen?
It started on day 1, and I feel like it was complete by day 3. Like my sleep was great, my GI was great already by day 3, and the improvement. I have been diagnosed with this microscopic lymphocytic colitis, and normally when I go for a run from the house, I might have to use the bathroom twice just in my 5-mile run.
Yeah.
And already in the first day, I just had to use the bathroom once in the morning. That was it. And the second day, I had no urge to use the bathroom any more than that at all, ever. And the rest of the trip. And my sleep scores went from, being in the 60s on my Garmin watch to being in the 80s. And one night I even got 85 points of body battery improvement out of 100 in one night.
That's amazing, Art.
My Garmin watch. So yeah, very quickly the feeling of hopelessness and lack of a future just disappeared.
So real quick, I know maybe not every listener can relate to a Garmin watch sleep score or body battery. Do you want to maybe re-describe that if you can in just everyday terms?
Yeah, so I think a sleep score, the Garmin grids your sleep, and it's similar on Whoop or Apple or a lot of these devices. Mm-hmm. There's tons of them out there. They're pretty prolific today, but Garmin grades your sleep between 0 and 100 on a given day. And if I have above 80, I feel pretty good about that. And sometimes I'm in the 90s, but not very often. And it judges the scores on, restlessness, heart rate variability, right, how much time you awake, the different zones, etc. And the body battery is a similar thing. Your body battery drains as you exercise or if you're stressed, and then it recharges as you sleep and as you rest.
Right.
And a typical for me, a typical range recently in these last 5 months when I haven't been feeling well might be coming from the 40s back into the 60s. At night. So maybe I'm getting 25 or 30 points at night, but never really good.
Yeah.
And when I got into the cycle on the trail, the good days I would get down to 15 because I'm hiking hard the whole day.
Yeah.
But then I'm resting at night. I'm having a light dinner. I'm reading, going to sleep at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Sleeping solid straight through the night with no breaks sometimes for 8 hours or 8.5 hours.
For those who know you and or may have a similar struggle with sleep, that's pretty amazing. We're geeking out a bit on the data here. So let's talk about
engineers together. It's trouble for the listeners,
Let's talk about, there was a day you didn't have cell phone coverage the whole way, but there was a day you called me, and I think it was maybe around the end of week 1 or day 10. I'm not sure exactly, but maybe you remember somewhere during the trip you called me and you just wanted to connect. And I had this very acute awareness that in our conversations, the tables had turned where you became the one who was the upbeat, energetic, positive, forward-looking, optimistic person talking about the wonderful things you were experiencing. And I mean, I wasn't at a low point or anything. It's just that you had leapfrogged me. And that was the first time, I hadn't even realized it. That was the first time that I'd had that experience talking to you in a really long time.
Yeah. I remember that conversation, Jim. I want to say it was on the Thursday before I came out of the woods. I was up on a high point. I thought, I have a little cell phone signal, and I had gotten a new battery brick at my food drop halfway through the 100-mile wilderness. Mm-hmm. And I remember you pointing that out, and it's interesting. Like, I love that in our life, we've both been the big brother for the other a lot of different times. Yes. Right. And that's a beautiful relationship as the yin and the yang wheel rolls, that we get to be there for each other. But you're right. The last 6 months, as you've said, I've been calling you for a lifeline a lot. Right. And, and which I'm, really grateful to have.
Absolutely.
And it was, you mentioned it then, and I felt that way. It's like, hey, I'm grounded, I'm centered, I'm connected to nature. I mean, I spend a lot of time physically touching nature. I'd walk barefoot, or I would lay on the ground on the moss without my shirt and just, feel it, or hug a tree and feel the energy of the tree through my hands, through my cheek. Yeah. So I was very grounded and very connected. And I think it was later in that day, Jim, when we talked, where I even, I almost lost my water bottle off a bald, this high granite, and it, almost rolled off the side. And I started, for a second, I freaked out for a second, like, oh my God, if I lost my water bottle, I would die.
Oh, yeah.
Because it wasn't retrievable. Like, if it went over the edge, that was it. But then I thought, no, I wouldn't. In Maine, there's water every couple miles. I thought, but if I drink it, then I'll get sick. Well, maybe it's a 1 or 5% chance I get sick. But I also had Cipro in my pack, so I sort of ran through that. I ran through that thinking process. And then I also almost lost my hiking pole the same day. Like it started to go off a bulb as well. And I grabbed it with the other hiking pole. And also had to think, what if I didn't have a hiking pole and then I fell and broke my leg? And it is really remote out there. I mean, if I fell and broke my leg off a side somewhere, it's possible I would die.
Yeah,
right?
You might.
And so I tried that on. It was really interesting. I tried that on and I was like, well, what if that happened? Well, the thing that I came to peace with that, like this, what Eckhart Tolle in the Bible calls the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. And I had been reading about fear and how if we don't fear anything, nothing can shake our center, can shake our groundedness.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything about, I want to die or anything like that. Not at all. I would fight really hard and I would try to find a way, but I also was at peace with if that happened, that somehow I could be at peace with it. Like somehow it'd be okay. And I'd still see my family later in the non-physical, or maybe even I can see them in the physical from where I'm in the non-physical.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was amazing to be able to get at peace with that.
So I don't know if you have had that experience before of trying on the idea of I might die, thinking it through from a detached perspective and how you really feel about it beyond the initial visceral freaking out emotional response, stepping out of that and looking at it pragmatically. I've had that experience a number of times in my life, and I've come to a place where I can say anytime I'm feeling completely freaked out, if I remember that, I get immediate peace. And it's really, really helpful because my triggers, my past traumas, my PTSD, whatever, when it comes into my life and presents, all of that is about survival. It's all formed in survival. It's like trying to keep me alive. And so when I can remember that if I die, it's okay. That's okay.
Right.
It's not, I don't look for that. I don't want that. And like, I could have said exactly what you did. I will fight against it.
Right.
I'm not ready. I don't want to do that. But if it happened, it would still be okay.
Yeah, that's right. And that I'm not going to lose my center over it. I'm not going to freak out. And
Right. Because right now I'm still alive, and that makes life way worse. So why carry that?
Right.
And I view that also from the scientific side as well as the spiritual side. From the spiritual side, I feel I'll be okay.
Right.
From the scientific side, the engineer in me, the scientist in me, I feel like, well, if there is no such thing as a spiritual side and there's nothing, then I won't know.
You won't know it anyway.
So I won't care.
Right.
There won't be a me to care. So no matter what someone's beliefs are, to my way of seeing it, it's going to be okay. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. And the other scientific side that comes up for me is also that freaking out does not help the situation.
No. It always makes it worse.
Does not help my chances of surviving. And I've been reflecting a lot. I have, I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff out here. I have this book, this journal that I wrote in every day on the trail. I also read these two books, Richard Rohr's Tears of Things, which is about the fact that sadness is necessary to develop full compassion and love, and how the prophets in the Bible did that, and how we can do that in our daily lives now. And I also read this one, which I'm surprised I'd never read before, but The Alchemist by Pablo Coelho, or Coelho, or how you say it, I'm not sure. Very popular book, sold, 50 million copies or something. So I did a lot of reading and writing and reflecting on the trail, but never as a point of distraction, right? I didn't have any headphones or anything like that.
Yeah.
But all of that being said, so I experienced all this, and I wrote a lot of stuff in my journals. I have a lot of reflections. But that Thursday, the same day that I came to peace with I might die out here on the trail, and if I do, it's not likely, but if I do, it's somehow okay. I can be at peace with it.
Yeah.
it's amazing that I could be at peace with that. And literally maybe 7 or 8 hours later, when I got off the trail and got a ride into town and I'm at the hostel and I get on the internet and I'm getting my text messages and my emails and, oh, we have this issue with the house you just sold and we have this issue with the mortgage on the house you're buying and we have this issue. And I just started to spin like already, like it was amazing. And at that point I had finished the amount of hiking I had planned to do, but I still had 2 full days left on the calendar. And I had not yet decided, am I going to try to move my flight and go home early? Am I going to just chillax at the hostel and just take it easy?
Yeah.
Or am I going to go back in the woods? But instead of going to sleep at 8 o'clock or 8:30, I was up until 10:30 or 11 and spinning on my phone, right? This wonderful evil thing that we have, right? That's wonderful when it's not connected. And sometimes it's wonderful when it's connected, like when I got to call you, but sometimes it's not. And it was just interesting how fast I could spin again. So that made up my mind already before I went to sleep. I'm going back on the trail tomorrow and the next day. So I bought a whole bunch more food and ate a 3,000, maybe not quite 3,000, but probably close to 3,000 calorie breakfast because I was really low on calories after those hard hiking on very small rations. And I bought a bunch of lighter gear. They had a great supply stop there at Shaw's in Monson, Maine, and headed back out on the trail. And those last 2 days were just as magical as the earlier ones. One significant thing that happened every morning I would get up, wake up whenever I woke up. I would meditate right there in my sleeping bag, even in the shelter with 5 or 6 other people or in my tent by myself. I just sit in my sleeping bag, sit up, meditate, not guided because I didn't have any headphones and I didn't want that. I would just sit there and time it. And I wouldn't even do it for a certain time. I would just time it to know how long it was once I was done. And I would meditate for 15 or 20 minutes or 25 minutes. And then I get my breakfast and get my water, and go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, and then start hiking. And then when I started hiking, because I was going southbound, everyone else is going northbound, I had the mornings completely to myself, which is also what I wanted. But then I would do my morning check-in process and I would deal with all my feelings and my inventory from yesterday and checking in with the different parts of myself and and when I say different parts, the mental, the physical, the emotional and spiritual, but also different parts, like who's feeling what and doing the Richard Schwartz, internal family systems or parts therapy. And the conversations were incredibly enlightening. And we'll maybe get into some of those later because I had some great ahas and continue to have some great ahas since I've been back. I'm getting a lot of tapping in the background, Jim.
Oh, I hear that too. Maybe it's outside.
Or Macy or something. It's fine. But then I end with, checking in with my angels and guides and what messages do they have for me? What does my spiritual self have for me? And then the end is, okay, God, what would you have me be today? This is no different than I do every morning at home, except that I'm doing it while I'm walking in this beautiful remote wilderness. Yeah. And I have no time constraints. So this process might take 10 or 20 minutes at home. It might take 2 hours or 4 hours even, with some interruptions to get some food or water or whatever, but then I pick it back up. And then I'll ask God at the end, okay, God, what do you want me to be today? And then what do you want me to do today? And then I think it was the Friday after I got back on the trail, which was pretty late. It was like 10 or 11 by the time I got on the trail. But the answer was, I want you to be sad today.
Yeah,
and I'd already
you mentioned that at one point to me.
Yeah, yes. I'd already processed so much sadness that I was like, really? Really? Like, what the F? God, you want me to be sad? Why would you want me to be sad? Like, I'm here in the wilderness, I'm toward the end of my hike, why would you want me to be sad? And the answer was, well, because you didn't let yourself process it for the first 50 years of your life. Right. So there's still a lot in there. And when it gets blocked, when you don't process it, it becomes this depression feeling, this grayness and darkness and trappedness and hopelessness. So I went for it. And I felt really silly when I passed northbound hikers eventually, but I cried for hours that day, and I lamented, and I asked a lot of why questions that usually don't serve us, but in the lamenting process, they actually can, as a way of processing it and expressing it. but it was amazingly freeing to just let myself feel all the sadness from everything that's done from the first half of my life, being a parent of kids living at home, and my big career that I had that I don't want again, but there's still a sadness with letting it go. There's still a grieving process with that part of my life dying, as well as all of the prospective things, all of the things that I once thought would be part of my second half that are not going to be part of my second half now. So there was also a grieving of that part, and nothing wrong with that, and nothing wrong with the direction I'm heading. But to acknowledge that and to grieve all of that was incredibly powerful. And that night was the day that I got 85 points of body battery in one sleep.
Yeah.
That there's so much peace from letting all that out. And I hiked very solid and strong, and not hard, but very solid and strong that whole day, even through hours and hours of tears.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in because I've been taking a few notes here, things I wanted to reflect on and ask you and stuff. So is that okay?
Absolutely.
Right, all right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime.
So I'm going to go in reverse order because you were just talking about sadness. And you mentioned why questions also often don't serve us, but it did in that environment. And I've actually talked to you about that because of your framework you had that same framework in another podcast. And I called you up and I said, I completely disagree. I think why questions are incredibly helpful. But
I remember that coming back.
Right. But see, that's what the nuance is the thing. If you're asking why to understand, that's fine. If you're asking why from a victim or
blame.
Blame or victim, then it's harmful. Just like that phone of yours, it can be used for good or bad. But I personally have gotten so much value out of asking why when I'm able to just be reflective and acknowledge emotions, but not be driven by them. So that's one thing. You mentioned all this sadness that you were processing.
And just to finish on that why stuff, like the thing that I say that's not helpful is sort of the why me God, like you said.
Yeah.
When I get into the
yes.
And but that being said, even in this lamenting period of this, half a day or 4 or 5 hours, even that felt useful. It still felt victimy when I was saying it, but it was a way of expressing it. It was a way of letting that sadness come out of my body, or that bitterness or that anger come out of my body. So even though that's not something that's sort of useful from I'm going to say problem solving perspective or finding a solution, it is useful as a way of letting the emotion come out.
Absolutely. I mean,
and that sort of surprised me.
For any of us who have been a parent of a young child, you've gotten the opportunity to see them process emotions. Right. And it is a cycle, and they often do blame, and then they move to acceptance. So
that's right.
It's perfectly normal and fine to do that. Just don't stop there.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So, okay. And then all that sadness. So I think at least among American men, certainly of our generation and prior, expressing sadness is taboo or culturally frowned upon.
Yes. It's weakness.
If we do it, we typically only do it with our spouse or someone very, very close to us, or alone. Yeah. So, I mean, you're no exception. I've seen you be sad a lot, and I feel like something maybe has shifted in this journey you took. Because what I saw is you would release sadness and more would come up, and you would release sadness and more would come up. And maybe you just had that much to release. I don't know, but I'm glad that something seems to have shifted maybe toward a lessening going forward, a lessening of sadness. Now, before you answer, I want to finish my thought because I think this is something that's been true for me, likely true for you, likely true for other people as well. Whenever we release the logjam in our sadness in a substantial, meaningful way, like I suspect you have, and that you did, it doesn't mean we're done. That sadness has been stuck inside of whatever shape our inner self is for so long, and it may have like swollen up like a balloon and put a lot of pressure on us and occupied a lot of our internal energy and space. And maybe the pressure's off, and now the stuck bits that didn't sweep out with the initial release are still going to be trickling out from time to time. And it's really important to make sure that they can still flow and not get frustrated by the, why am I still sad? I did all this processing.
This episode of the Life in Transition podcast is brought to you by MidLife Transition Mastery. If you have reached midlife and you are successful, you have checked all the boxes. You've done everything you thought you should do, and especially pleasing everybody else, doing what you think everyone else needs you to do. But you still feel like something's missing. Like you're coming up empty, feeling alone, feeling misguided or lost. Midlife Transition Mastery Explorer community is for you. Here we will build authentic community. We will learn about the 8 steps to mastering midlife transition. And we will learn and execute living life with no regrets in our second half. Please check out the community on lifeintransition.online/MLTM, Midlife Transition Mastery. And I look forward to seeing you around the fire in this community. Yeah, I think I want to comment a couple things on this. One, you talked about this log jam.
Yeah.
And what I noticed for myself, I had already had several 2 sessions with men from my men's group just to process sadness, where I really let stuff come out for an hour or two, really intensely. And the reason I was afraid, and it was really a strong fear, afraid to do that before, was because I thought that releasing the log jam, like if I cracked the log jam, cracked the dam, that the tidal wave, the flood of sadness of water, I couldn't handle it. Like that it would overwhelm me and kill me. Like that was my fear. Like that I somehow would just die because it would be too much. Like so I had a couple of experiences with other very experienced therapists in our men's group that could hold the space for me and say, hey, it's okay. You're not going to die. Let's go. Let's lean into it. But I did have another one of those that day on the trail for sure. And there's always going to be some more residual stuff from the past. And there's always going to be new sadness as well. But sadness is not a problem. Stuck sadness is a problem. Yeah. Right? Sadness is the low notes of the symphony, which you can't contrast to the high notes. You don't have music without the low notes. Right? Just
that's a beautiful way of framing it. I like that.
Right? So I'm not near as resistant. You notice a minute ago I just tear up even here on the podcast. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Because I'm really working on letting myself feel what I feel, letting myself want what I want, which was another big thing that I got being on the trail, that it's actually okay to want what I want for no reason. And I say that from maybe a higher self or seed of self. But it really, very much in line with The Alchemist, which is about what he calls it, following your personal legend. But Joseph Campbell calls it, are you going to be able to say a hearty yes to your adventure? Right. What is it that is inside you that inspires you, that pulls you? And I've struggled a little bit in 12-step recently thinking, it's always say, well, God, thy will, not my will, God be done. But that's a dichotomy, a false dichotomy, because when we're in tune, it's the same will.
It's the same thing, yes.
God puts that inside of us. Yeah. And so there was a reason why in my darkest days there, the only thing that sort of made me inspired was to go to the trail, even though it didn't make any sense. But that was my personal legend, if you look at The Alchemist, or the desire that God put inside me, because that's where the lessons were. Yeah. That's where the processing was. And so to trust that and to be this channel for the moment, for God in the moment, is is another thing that I got. And part of that is that it's also okay to want what I want. Like even with hiking, you know, if I wanted to stop and talk to somebody, I did. And if I didn't, I didn't.
Oh, that reminds me.
Yeah.
Real quickly. You said you've mentioned that you met people on your day of sadness and you just, you felt like they might have looked at you funny or whatever. But you know what? I bet they didn't, because I haven't talked to tons of people who have hiked the AT, but I've seen a few interviewed here and there, maybe 4 or 5 in my life other than you. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about their experience without talking about some sort of healing aspect.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's funny because like I'd even think about, you know, like I'd stop and hug a tree and then there's some northbound hiker to come around the corner and I'd be able to embarrassed or whatever. And then I was talking to this one, she might be on the podcast too at some point coming up, this one beautiful soul who had hiked north at 65 years old and became healthy, lost 65 pounds, got off 12 medications. I ran into her again at the hostel on Saturday night at the end. And I was saying, you know, it's something about, you know, connecting with trees like this. And she's like, yeah, isn't it wonderful? You know, to like hug a tree and feel its energy and feel your energy shared with it. And I thought, oh, I'm not the only one, you know. You know, so if she had seen me, she would have just smiled and said, hey, you know, there's someone else tuning into this sacredness of all things. Like Richard Rohr talks a lot about that, even in this book, and a lot more in the Universal Christ about the sacredness of all things, whether it's a rock or a pond or a loon or a plant or a tree, right? That it all has a sacredness to it. And
so
I just finish up that by acknowledging that is how we can tap into the sacredness of life as a whole.
Yeah. So whenever we talk, this is your podcast, I'm aware there might be other people out there trying to understand or connect or relate to what we're saying. And so when you talk about sacredness of every little thing and connecting to it, you know, in my own life, I've struggled to sort of feel anything but an intellectual acknowledgement that may be the case to like a grain of sand or a piece of rock or a stick.
Right.
So for me, I don't worry about that. I just don't. What I do is I remain open to connecting with an understanding of sacredness wherever I can.
Right.
And
that's
like a beautiful beach, a sunrise. Those are easy.
Yeah.
And I continue to try and stay open for and receptive to, you know, understanding at a more visceral level, sacredness of more mundane things. But I just wanted to remind you and others that it's okay if you're not alone if you don't feel the sacredness in everything. You know?
Yeah, that's right. And there's no reason to. What can you feel the sacredness in? Right. I remember a friend telling me recently, said to be optimally healthy, each person needs, you know, and this is of course always on average, but 12 hugs a day. All right. And we all know for our emotional selves how important that physical connection is. And of course, when I'm on the trail by myself, I'm not getting 12 hugs from people. But when I would do my emotional check-in for the different parts of myself, and I would always check in with emotional self would be like, well, I need hugs today. I'm like, well, will 3 hugs do? And they're like, absolutely. Yeah. So there is, you know, so now also interesting. Like I never had that sense hugging a dead tree, which still has some sacredness in it, but it's not the same as a 300 or 400 year old, 250 foot high white pine.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that's 3 feet in diameter, or a 1 foot in diameter birch tree that's bursting with white and light and leaves. And, you know, but I was shocked, maybe too strong a word, but I was shocked at how once I had come down from my, what do you want to call it, modern life vibration, you know, once I was grounded, those back in circadian rhythms and back in this balance of nature and sleeping well, I was amazed at how much connection I had to nature, how much I could feel the energy of the tree or the sunrise. It was visceral. It was really, it almost shocked me how strong that connection was.
I love it that you had that experience, Art.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. And that last sunrise, and maybe I'll put that in the front of the video of this podcast, or definitely connected to the show notes. But the last sunrise I was on, I think it was called Peace Pond, which ponds in Maine are like lakes in the rest of the United States, right? Yeah. But Peace Pond, and the sun was coming up, and the sun wasn't over the horizon yet. It was cloudy, but it was shining up on the clouds, pink and peach.
Right.
And, and purple.
Always beautiful, yes.
And reflecting down into the glass.
Into the water. Yeah. Wow. That sounds magical.
It was. And I made a short video because the loons were calling as well at the same time. So I made a bunch of pictures and a short video. But to have those type of gifts, and that's easy to feel the sacredness of that moment.
Right. But that's okay.
Start wherever you're at, right? Start where you're at. Like, I mean, most of the time we wouldn't even slow down for that. If we were driving by on I-95,
we might notice it, but
we probably wouldn't stop and fully absorb it because we got to get somewhere, got to do something. So yeah, start where you are. Another thing that and I think you asked me this and some others asked me, like, what's still with you a week later? Right. I mean, this will come out in a few weeks.
I have a comment about that, by the way.
Is it a question or a comment? Do you want me to make my comment first, or do you want to go first?
I'll go first because it's related, and I don't know where it fits in the conversation.
All right.
So it'll be easy to step back into what you're about to say, I imagine. So back to when you finished your original hike distance route,
the Thursday, when I came out early.
And then you found yourself so easily pulled back into the spinning state, the modern technology demands of life. And then you went out and hiked again. So to me, that's really, that was a massive gift, because you were reset to a vantage point inside yourself where you could now clearly see the dysfunction of this other state. Right?
Yes. Thank you. The contrast was, was
and
stark.
Then given the opportunity to reconnect back with your more natural state, your more healthy state. So that is exactly an ideal situation for integrating changes and transitions, right?
Right.
So the immersion deep into your mental spinning and stress and anxiety, it may have felt, I'm sure it did feel at the time, like, oh my God, like
what the hell?
What the hell? That's all it took to undo all this work that I just did. But if you frame it slightly differently and remember to step back, we're all going to feel that initial, like, oh my God, what the hell just happened? But then having the opportunity to step out again, that is absolutely necessary, because what you're doing when you switch between these states is you're weaving threads, you're integrating your life. You're integrating your history, your past, your present, your future of these two states, which allows you, when you get into that state you don't want to be in, it gives you a thread to follow to come back.
Right. To go through the fabric and go to the other side. Yeah.
So it's not that you would have, you already created a thread by doing this experience, but then being pulled back so abruptly and with such contrast, and then being able to travel back again to a place of peace. That really made it a much stronger connection. And so I think this is good to mention, because people going through transitions who find moments of peace and relief and clarity, and then it all tumbles down again. I want to remind those people, just as I'm reminding you here, that those are actually gifts of opportunity, because you can't, just like the healing from whatever you're healing, it's still there until it's healed. So these moments of dysfunction or sinking into our past or sadness or whatever it is that we are seeking to change about ourselves. In order to do that, we have to process it and integrate it into a change, navigate it to a change. You can't just bury it or it will still be there.
Right. Yeah, it'll build up more pressure and eventually.
Right. We can't just build on top of it. We have to reshape it, I guess. I'm not really sure. I think I'm starting to lose my metaphors a bit, but that was very clear to me listening to your story, how I could see that as a gift, whereas I suspect you might have seen it as a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, at the time I definitely didn't see it as a gift. That's for sure. That is for sure.
And then you were about to start to talk about 1 week later integration and all that, and this I see as a very integrative experience that you had.
Yes, and I would agree with that. And
so now, please proceed.
Yeah, well, I think, and then I want to jump back to actually the beginning of the story or the beginning of the trail. But what I see a week later, the main thing that I've kept with me in only 1 week, but is that everything, like, is this overlying piece of that everything is actually okay right now in this moment. Not just, IGBOK, you see these bumper stickers, IGBOK, it's gonna be okay. I see a lot of those.
Oh, no, it is okay.
But it is okay, and it is going to be okay.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
And why is that? How is that? What comes with that also is because it is okay and it's going to be okay, because of that, I also don't have to control the outcome. I just have to follow this sense, this intuition, this guidance, this God's voice, whatever you want to call it. And trust that whatever comes from that is right now okay and will be okay in the future. Like, I don't have to figure it out. That was another, you talk about the weaving of the cloth. Like, every day, my tendency is to spend a lot of time in problem-solving mode or executive mode, right? Like getting shit done, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Problem-solving, improving, getting stuff done. And I had a therapist told me years ago about, there's two states and functions of life. There's experience and problem-solving. And you might want to try spending maybe 5 or 10% of your time in experiencing life instead of just problem-solving all the time.
Yeah.
And what I noticed is that on the trail is continually a reminder, like, there's no, one, I'm there for the beauty and the connection and so forth. And that's experiential. That's witnessing, not doing or figuring out.
Yes.
But 2, I was reminded every day, like, my tendency, my intellect is strong and sometimes overbearing. And my tendency of the intellect would be to calculate every 5 seconds when I'm going to arrive somewhere. When am I going to make this place for lunch? Or when am I going to, where am I actually going to stay tonight? And I want to start calculating that when I first start walking. But if I'm walking on a smooth, slightly downhill path, which didn't happen very often, maybe 5% of the time. But if I'm walking on that, and then my pace is 3.5 miles an hour or 4 miles an hour, that's going to give a completely different projection than if I'm taking that same calculation when I'm climbing up something that's hands and feet climbing, that's 0.5 mile an hour.
Right.
And there's simply no point in even thinking about it at that point, at either of those points.
Yeah.
So I made a deal with my intellect, like, okay, I'm not going to calculate anything until I'm 5 miles down the trail.
Okay.
And then we'll do 1 and we'll guess, we'll put a range on it. And then we're not doing any more until it's another 2 miles or 5 miles.
Okay.
Right. So to help myself be in the experiential mode a lot more often. But that also led to this realization that there's so many things that I'm trying to make decisions about when it's not time to make decisions about them yet. Yes. I had another therapist that said once, Art, you're trying to buy a ticket that's not yet for sale, or deciding whether to buy a ticket that's not yet for sale.
That's a great description.
Yeah. And so there's so much of it. I was like, am I going to stay at this campground or that campground? Who knows? And it doesn't make any sense to think about it too far in advance.
Right.
to just enjoy, just experience, keep walking. And then as you get close, it'll become self-evident. Check in with your body, especially when I'm being that physical. Check in with your body. Check in and see, and there was sometimes when I'm like, I'm just going to stop right here. Just walking along. I'm like, no, I'm going to stop right here.
Yeah.
And that's perfect. And how much mental energy and stress do I put on myself with all this calculating? That's totally inappropriate from a timing perspective. Yes, of course, to have a rough plan, and I did. I'm going to do roughly this many miles per day and so forth. But once you're closer to it, don't make the decisions until it's actually time, until it actually makes sense. Yeah. And then check in with yourself, check in with your body, and see how it goes. So,
can I reflect on that, my own experience?
Yeah, please.
With that? So,
please.
I struggle to run, and I run anyway to stay a measure of fit. And, but I don't run constantly, as you know. You well know. I run and then I walk and then I run some more and I walk some more, and I just do it that way to get the miles in. Sometimes I'm running until I really feel like I need to take a break and walk for a while, gasping for air. My legs have no strength, something like that. Sometimes a part of me, and this goes back to the parts therapy, internal family systems, there's a part of me that sometimes needs to be reminded that I'm listening and demands that I stop and walk for a while, even though I'm not gasping for air and my legs still have some strength. But you know what? When I hear that part, I honor it.
Yeah, that's right.
And I say, I am listening. And I suspect that once that happens enough times, that it'll stop happening because it won't be needed anymore.
Yeah, it's a control mechanism, right?
Yeah.
In a good way, like to get the feedback, to see if the feedback loop is working.
Right.
Right. Which makes complete sense. So that was one of the things. There was many, but I one of the things that shocked me about this trip too is I went into it. It was after a day off. I flew to Maine, stayed in the hostel. I couldn't start my hike till the day after that because of the schedule to start in Baxter and climb Mount Katahdin. It's pretty competitive. It's September. So I had a day at the hostel. And at the end of that day, I wrote my intentions for the time in the woods. And this is what I wrote. I've come to the AT to connect with God and nature, to be at peace, to calm my fretting mind, to be present, to experience awe and wonder, to connect with joy, to be still and silent so I can hear God, to rest, to be with myself with no crutches or distractions of talking to others, listening to things, playing on my phone, reading. To leave here being excited about my life, both the present and the future. Having a sense of purpose, that's the one question I still have a question mark next to. And feeling God moving in my life. So those are the intentions. I didn't write anything about clarity. I didn't write anything about making decisions. And very intentionally, for two reasons. One is this is not a doing activity.
Yeah. Well.
And second, I was afraid that I wouldn't get any anyway. I was afraid to ask for it in a way. But I also didn't, and maybe I don't need it or whatever, but I made little tick marks next to, I'm holding the book up here so you can see every day that I felt like I did one of those things as I was over the trail.
So thank you for mentioning that, because the list as a whole, it's too big to take on all at once. However, if you were trying to tick one every day, that's the right focus.
I wasn't even trying to tick one every day. Well, I can come to that in a minute. I just at the end of the day, I would just see which ones I happened to tick.
Right.
Now, each morning, I also set an intention for that day before I left camp. But then also could be guided by my angels and guides and God later in the morning process as well. But the thing that surprised me the most early on was without asking for it, without putting it on the list, without trying to go for it, how much clarity I did get, which surprised the shit out of me. I mean, it really did. And I mean, day 3, I see here, like, what do I want? And I talked about how I want to be connected with my kids physically and emotionally, and when there's grandkids and so forth. And it was, again, it's okay to want what I want. I guess just once I get the circadian rhythms done and got my peace back and got my groundedness back, like everything is clear, like automatically. Without like it's sort of, I'm still processing it. It's like I try to figure out clarity, which is not something you can figure out. All you can do is let the muddy water settle, and then it becomes clear.
Yes, that's a good way of describing that too. You've used a lot of descriptions I like today.
Awesome. One of my gifts, hopefully, that helps other people.
Yeah. Well, because I'm having the same sort of thoughts. Is clarity is not. It's kind of the inverse of saying don't think of pink elephants, right?
Right. Yes. Which is impossible to not don't think of something.
Right. Just like it's impossible to reach in and grasp clarity from some spot inside of ourselves. What you can do is...
But dude, I have spent so much time trying to do that, Jim.
Oh, wow.
So much time, like trying to grab. I love the way, again, the visualization, like I'm reaching in the muddy water, maybe also with my eyes closed, trying to grab clarity, right? But that is not something. So how do you do it? So you can't do it that way. What do you do?
You do exactly like the things that you were just describing. Is you do things that move you toward a place of peace. And in peace, clarity emerges. The fog fades away.
Yeah, it settles or burns off.
Or dissipates. The fog dissipates in peace. Yeah. And so your muddy water, mine is the cloud or foggy air or whatever that the wind drives in, or I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you used water. I was thinking of air, but yeah.
Right.
One thing you said a little bit ago about you made me think of the general case of people who retire or find themselves with lots of free time, or maybe they're empty nesters or whatever, floundering a bit. And yes, often feeling sad. And I know you and I both have known people who have even committed suicide.
Yes.
The terrible tragedy of that.
Yes.
And I don't mean for me. I miss the person I know. I'm sure you miss the couple people or more that you know.
Yeah.
The sadness is I feel sad for them that they missed out on so much that was yet to come, that they just couldn't see.
Right.
But I want to acknowledge that at least for people who are go-getters, get shit done, be productive. That for workaholics, I'm pretty sure, I've not been in the WA group or anything, but for workaholics and people who are very results driven, if you take away the goal or the list of goals, the check boxes to check off,
right,
all the mental, emotional sort of reward system that we have built in over decades of our lives suddenly isn't delivering. It's the spigot's been turned off because we don't have a list of things to check. We don't have these goals that are typically from our career. Sometimes it might be our children, taking care of them and stuff, but that list is now a blank page. And so the rewards of feeling good about having achieved and accomplished and maybe helped our team, our boss, our kids, our neighbors, whatever, when you take that away, I don't know if it's like, I have a test on this or something, because as you know, I'm getting my master's in social work and we're covering stuff like this even this semester. But the dopamine or whatever it is that is bolstered by those achievements, that delivery mechanism is turned off. And so no wonder we feel sad. No wonder we start to feel depressed and gray and hazy.
Right.
But So it's a hard transition because it's usually very abrupt and we don't have other things. And yet, I think if you asked most people, even in their careers, if you had more time to do the things you wanted, wouldn't that be great? And they would say yes.
This episode of the Life in Transition podcast is brought to you by Transition Mastery Coaching. If you have made it to midlife and you're successful and you are going through transitions in your life, in your business, in your career, or in your organization, and you are looking to master those transitions, to make the most of them, to accelerate into the next phase of your organization or your life. If you're facing, challenges in your business, challenges in your relationship, challenges in your health, and you really want to transition those quickly, I'm here to guide you for that. And I look forward to working with you. And you can sign up for either Pinnacle Transition Coaching or Summit. Please go to lifeintransition.online/MLTM and scroll to see the Summit and Pinnacle Coaching, or reach out to me directly on my email, art@artblanchford.com. And I look forward to connecting with you and helping you to accelerate your transitions to achieve what it is that you want to achieve in the second half in your organization and in your life, so you can live your whole life with no regrets. Right. But then once we have the time, we don't know what we want. Right. And that's, to me, that's where I was a big thing this time about getting to want what I want. Like, it's okay to want what I want. Right. And it is true. And then the other thing is that these transitions take a lot longer than I think they should take. Right? But what I've also seen in a lot of studies, I read an article recently in the Wall Street Journal about this, is that those that are willing to hang in there with the discomfort, hang in there with the length, even if it's years, to keep the growth mindset and keep trying to figure out instead of just going back to what's familiar, are the ones that really do have the most joy and fulfillment in the second half. Right. And I even, I remember commenting to my wife that, it's actually okay to do things just for fun. Not all the time. Right. But it's okay, to do just for fun, to just enjoy stuff. Right. Because there's a part of me that thought that was never okay. Right. So there was so much good that came out of here. And I've done a lot of integration. I did a lot of writing, and I'm continuing to do more writing about integration and what are the actions that I want to take, what are the clarities that I've gotten. There's a couple other things I want to share before we wrap up here. One is, and as soon as I say that, then I even forget it. I'm setting down my journal and I forget the one that I was bringing. But now I remember. So when I was doing these parts therapy, and I've done this while I was in the woods, and I've done this since I've been back. Because in the woods I had a lot of time. So even if the emotion that normally I just go with when I say, what am I feeling? Who's feeling it? Where am I feeling it in my body? I go with the strongest one. Yeah. Because that's what I'm most present with. But with the luxury of time in the woods, I would go to the one that I felt maybe could use the most healing, even if it wasn't the strongest. Because I could go to the other ones later. I had all day, literally, right, while I'm walking to do this. And what I noticed, there's two examples. One was while I was in the woods. One was since. But what I noticed is that there's parts of me from when I was really young that, and if anybody that's read IFS, you'll understand this right away, but it'll make sense anyway. So there's parts of me from when I was really young that had coping strategies that have no longer served me. That's a general statement that everybody knows. Right. But not only do they not only serve me.
I don't know that everybody knows that.
Yeah, not everybody knows.
Everybody who's, I think most of us who have been on this path for a while has discovered that.
Yes. So what I saw was that there's two specific ones that I'm going to share that came up. One was there was a part of me feeling like while I was on the trail, like I was feeling anxious and scared. And what it was about was like, hey, you need to be making money. You need to be making more money than you are right now. You need to make money. And I said, okay, what is it that you want by having them more money. Oh, if I have more money, then I'll be respected. Okay. And what will you get by being respected? What do you want by being respected?
Yeah.
Well, then I'll be connected. People will want to be around me, and I'll be connected, and I'll be loved.
Mm-hmm.
So this part of me that felt I need to be making more money than I am in order to be loved. Now, because I had the time, I spent time there. Okay, cool. Is that the only way so really what you want is to be connected and loved? Yes. Is that the only way by making money that you can feel connected and loved? No. Like even that, like on its own, that part of me, which is a much younger part, I mean, preteen part of me. No. Well, what could you do? Well, I guess I've been thinking about on the trail, like I've had really good connections with people, even though they don't know if I'm completely broke or make tons of money, and I don't have any idea about them either. And I've still had really good connections. Yeah, that's right. So maybe you could just skip the making money part and just connect with people. Yeah, maybe. So all that I've processed before. Here's where it got interesting to me. When you are looking to make more money, how do you interact with the people that you run into? How do you connect with the people that you run into? How do you hold them? Well, I'm always figuring out how they might be useful to make more money.
Right.
And so when you're meeting somebody, you're thinking about transactional type of relationship, how they might be useful for you to make more money so you can be respected, connected, and loved. Yes. Does that holding of that relationship, does that place when I meet Jim on the trail and I'm thinking, is this a guy I can use to make more money because I need to be respected, connected, and loved?
Yeah.
Does that help me or hurt me from being connected to Jim in that moment?
Right.
It's exactly the opposite.
Yes.
It does exactly the opposite of what I actually want.
Yes.
And yet I've driven a lot of my life with this behavior.
Right.
And I even had another one today. I was thinking about, because I had time, I was driving to a meeting and I had time doing my check-in. So I had all these feelings, but one of the feelings I had was dread. And it wasn't very strong, but it was there. So being curious from the trail, I dug into it. Okay, dread, what are you dreading? What's the dread? The dread is this feeling of, in my office here, there's boxes that are still unpacked with all of these remnants from my previous career for 25 years.
Yeah.
Business cards and awards from China and whatever, like all kinds of stuff, pictures of my kids when they were younger, pictures of my teams, all this stuff. And I'm like, well, why do you dread? Well, because I dread going through it, because if I get rid of them and it comes back to connection and love always for me somehow. So if I get rid of all this stuff, then if I don't have friends and connected and loved, then I won't even have the things to connect to and remind me of those memories. So again, it was a proxy for real connection, like to have these things. And I didn't want to have to make the decisions about throwing them out. So the same process came up. I was like, okay, but having these things in your office right now, one, do the things really help you connect with people? No. If you really want is connection and love, do they really help you connect with people? No. Okay. Two, having this mess in your office, is it keeping you or interfering at all with connecting with people and loving?
Now.
Yes. Now. Now.
Yes.
Because I'm not having coaching clients in my office. I'm meeting them in my other office
right.
that I'm renting because I have crap in this office. And when I'm on a podcast with you, even, I'm a little bit distracted by seeing these boxes of stuff right there. Right.
Yeah.
So again, it's the opposite.
Yes.
So when I got back this morning, the first thing I did is, just quickly clean up the stuff right in the doorway, put it in the closet, dump some stuff out, But it's just interesting how not only are these behaviors not serving me anymore, but they're creating in the moment the exact opposite.
They actively sabotage
of what I really want. Of what I really want is really interesting. So that's another clarity that I got from the trail. And I got a lot of clarity about, I'll call it my businesses as well. That doesn't make any sense, except that it's a knowing and following my ember, as you and I talked after that one journey, or following personal legend, as Pablo Coelho talks about in The Alchemist. And it feels really good, and I'm really excited about it. And knowing that I don't control the outcome, but this is the way I'm supposed to go right now. And that feels really exciting.
Art, I know I just want to reflect on something because it keeps spinning in my head because I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Even though it's only peripherally related. Listening to you, I can identify at least 2, maybe 3 specific therapy skills in action that you're applying to yourself.
Right.
One of them, and I don't remember the formal name for it. It's probably also on a test at some point this semester.
Right. You'll be taking as your capstone.
But I understand, but I get the principle, which is asking the what then. Like, so there's a question, and then there's an answer, and then say, okay, so what does that answer mean?
Yeah.
And then
what do you want?
Answer,
like, what do you want? Yeah.
And then, so what does that answer mean? Like, and then, so people hate you. Okay, so what does that mean to you? Yeah. How does that feel? And you just keep going down layers. And that technique is actually used to find the logical fallacies that are deeply buried, which is also a CBT, a cognitive behavioral therapy technique, to find the logical disconnect.
Yeah.
Bring it out into the light where the person can see it, and then they can decide, oh, that doesn't make sense. Right.
Yeah.
So,
and if you can have, yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly right, Jim. Thank you for pointing that out. And, I always call it like in coming back to why in the automotive industry is 5 whys, like the why, or what do you want by getting what you want. Right.
Right.
But it's even that much more powerful. Yes, that's a great tool. And even for CBT, if you can have that conversation with that part of you that is from IFS, that's splintered off, and see that part of you and acknowledge that part of you and ask what they would rather do or what they would really like by doing that. That's a way to compound the effectiveness.
Yes.
Right. To make it even more effective.
So that is the role of that I'll be playing in individual therapy or group therapy with clients someday, presumably, unless something changes.
Right.
But it's sort of validating to me to see that the tools that I'm being taught are actually tools that can naturally evolve and be self-employed, on myself. And I've seen that, by the way, too, in myself. I'm like, oh, I recognize this. I did this myself, to myself, with myself.
Right.
But I see you doing the same things.
Yeah.
And it's very validating that these tools actually help and work. It's always going to be easier if you have somebody who knows how to wield the tool. Yes. And is actually applying it and helping to get down to that part of you that's so hard to reach.
Yeah. And quite frankly, I have been doing this for years with myself and with the help of therapists.
Oh, yes.
So I've had a lot of practice. So to wrap up here, I always ask my guests, what's the one tool? If someone's going through transition or someone's going through this depression time, what's the one tool? What's the one thing that they would recommend that they can apply right now to really make a difference?
Yeah.
And
so what's your answer?
My answer right now is, and I'll say, especially if you feel very stuck or very depressed, is to actually spend 3 days in nature. Yeah. And if you're really stuck, you can make 3 days because you're stuck anyway.
And when you say spend 3 days in nature, I suspect you mean without the phones, without
with
the
no cell phone signal, without
music,
any cell phone signal, without any music,
the noise and interaction of other humans.
Go find a hiking trail where you can be more or less by yourself and walk for 3 days, and take a backpack or stay in a little hostel or something. But even better, just take a backpack and take a tent. I think it's been incredibly liberating for me, and I can tell you. I said hi to hundreds of people on the trail going north. I had really meaningful connections with maybe 30. And most of them were doing much longer hikes. They were finishing a 2,000-mile hike. And the impact that some of these people shared with me about on their life and this has also been incredibly powerful. So there's more to come on this. I'm going to be interviewing some guests, some people that I met on the trail as well, and learning their stories. But Jim, I really appreciate. I just always appreciate our connection. I appreciate you. I love you, and I'm really happy to have had this conversation to help with my integration and my codifying the actions and the things that I learned, which I'll continue to do and continue to journal. And I'm really hope this is also very useful for those listening to take away some tools that they can make better with their life. So thank you for
absolutely, Art.
With me.
I wanted to have this conversation with you anyway, and it probably would have gone a little different, but the main themes would have been there if we weren't being recorded on camera. But, so I'm grateful that you made time for this too, because I really did want to talk to you about your experience on the trail. I also want to add one little nuance. Your suggestion to go to nature is it's time tested and proven. Many people have given similar advice throughout history.
Yeah.
And for you personally, I want to say what I saw is that this was your way of kind of, I don't want to say forcing yourself, but it was a strong push to finally allow yourself to relax.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't anything else to do when you weren't hiking, and you could relax mentally while you were hiking. You could.
Yeah.
It was permission to relax, to have fun, to notice what's around you, to get out of your head. All of these things are possible today, in this moment, in your house, in your office, wherever you happen to be. And I'm no different. I mean, the setting absolutely is a massive, massive force in the equation, a massive factor in the equation of this. But I think it's helpful to me, and I think it could be helpful to you to acknowledge at least that someday you might not actually need that. You still may enjoy that experience just for itself. But in terms of a healing activity, you may not need that because you may have sewn enough threads between
to be able to connect that in daily life.
On any day, in any place.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to say one other thank you to you, Jim, which I didn't mention, but it was actually a pretty big part of my day, is that every day I skipped a fair amount. Like whenever it was flat or a little bit downhill, even with my big backpack, even be all funky, and skipping, which is, you challenged me. Hey, skip,
I did.
Sing, run, and
right.
And I did every day, and it always made me smile and always made me look. And
that's beautiful.
When the terrain allowed it, which was a little bit, at least every day, I would skip and really have a good time, and really appreciate that as well. That was, so there's a lot of little things in there as well. But good stuff, Jim. We'll continue the conversation, and really lovely to be with you again, and maybe something that we'll do, once every 6 months or something anyhow on this podcast, just sort of catch up and share what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That'd
be wonderful. Love you too, Art.
Take care. I can't wait to hear what action you are taking. Connect with me on LinkedIn or our website, lifeintransition.online, and let me know. Let a friend know too. It could be a huge encouragement to them and keep you on the track. Thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and it would mean a lot to me if you left a review and shared this episode with a friend. If you want to learn more about me and what I do when I'm not podcasting, please visit me at artblanchford.com. Thank you for listening. Together, let's make the most of life in transition.